that that the minion downstairs because he wanted to get in, because Rosh Chodesh, it's a little gets a little late.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, all right, we'll work what we can do, right, Mr. Haber? Got a nice crowd beginning of the week.
Very nice. Yeah.
Morning. Nathan Bitesh is back, better than ever. This is the space that, I think we're gonna have to move the thing back one that, there's room for this. Morning. Okay.
No.
Where you headed, Mr. Yeah. I give it to you. Bring it back into the first. Nobody's doing attention now. Nobody's doing them now. Okay. We are learning about now. We continue. We're going to get to summer very soon. We're still finishing up now on the Borei Moreh H. Line is shell base Knesset. Or shell base. What'd you say? Yeah, 53A. Or shall be the Knesset, the fire of a synagogue, the light of the synagogue. You got it? What's that? Yeah. Shall be Knesset. Did you have it? Okay. Okay, we can move the table if you want to each of you back if you want. Okay. Shall be Knesset, the fire of a synagogue. Morning Yosef Tzaddik. The fire of a synagogue, the light that you use in a synagogue to illuminate the synagogue. So we have a Beit Midrash to illuminate the fire of a Beit Midrash. So we have one bright that says Mevorchen Alav. One bright that says you say a bracha. You say a bracha, Borei Moreh Eish. You could go ahead and after Shabbat, you go ahead and say Borei Moreh Eish on that fire. And the other bright that says you cannot say a bracha on the fire of a Beit Midrash, the light of the Beit Midrash, or the light of the Beit Knesset. We have two different opinions. Good morning, Ariel is here. Very good. So we have two different opinions. Ariel is going to remind you about the Birkat Torah. Good morning, Akiva. Good morning, Boker Tov. Good to see you. So we have two opinions, whether you could say a bracha on the light of the synagogue. We have why?
Where are you?
Saturday night, I'm in the synagogue, and what we say Havdalah? Right, I want to say Havdalah. I'm learning late at night. I'm a yeshiva bacher. I want to stay in the. I don't want to go home right away because I want to learn right after Shabbat. And they're making Havdalah, and we're making Havdalah in the synagogue. And now, what light do we have? We have lights. The lights of the synagogue. The light is burning. What kind of light? The light of fire. Can I say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei moreh eish? Or finish I want to make Havdalah. Can I use the light? Do I have to go ahead and light a new light? For Havdalah, I want to say Borei Moreh Eish. I want to use the fire of the synagogue or the fire of the Beit Midrash to say the bracha Borei Moreh Eish. I'll use that. I'll say the bracha. Any issue? What's the problem? What's the problem? Oh, so the Gemara says it depends what the purpose of the light of the synagogue is for. If the light of the synagogue generally is light up the place, then you definitely could say the bracha on it. It's like any other light that's fire that's used for illumination to be able to show you how to see in order to help your vision. And that you say the bracha on. But sometimes in the synagogue or the Beit Midrash, the purpose of benefit, but in honor of somebody. Let's say if Rav Chacham Avadia would come to the synagogue. So in the old days, in honor of you would stand up, but there was another thing they did. They would light a fire in his honor. They would light a candle, just like I mentioned at a wedding. Ashkenaz weddings, I don't think they do it. So, they light a fire when they go down the aisle.
Usually the parents are holding.
Right, exactly. Even though it's a daytime wedding, it's not about the daytime or the night. Not that it's about in honor of the event or on Shabbat. I'm saying even if the lights are on Shabbat, the light is so honorable for the Shabbat.
So
Yes.
you would have a context like this, you would have a bit and the light is like this, but you add a candle to it.
Oh, very good. So let's say the light, it's mostly Shabbat, and most probably there's a light there that's being used for illumination purposes, and there's an extra light that's there for the purpose of honoring the rabbi. That light, either they lit it before Shabbat or they lit it right after Shabbat. They lit it because the rabbi came to the synagogue. So that light was not lit for illumination to show you to see. That light was in order out of some other purpose. And you don't, and if the light is there for another purpose, not vision purposes, you do not say we're blessing on that fire. The fire that the rabbi said, he said a blessing on Saturday night, the fire that was made for the purpose of light, to be able to see. But if it's from other purpose, if it's not to be able to see, it's for the purpose on, or the Gemara in the Mishnah said, let's say a dead body, they would light a light maybe to, just out of respect for the dead body, so that you would have seeing you should be able to see something. Just like they have a yahrzeit candle that's lit the whole 7 days. Saying, but if that's not for the purpose of illumination purposes, then you would just light it at night. Why leave it going for 7 days? What's the purpose? They would not say a bracha on such a thing. And therefore, the Chafetz Chaim says, a yahrzeit candle. Let's say my father passed away, right? So I light a yahrzeit candle. If I can't let's say if my father's yahrzeit is on a Saturday, I lit it. If the yahrzeit is Friday night, Saturday, you light it before the Shabbat. So if I lit it before Shabbat, now comes after Shabbat. Can I say a bracha on this yahrzeit candle? I can, because it was not lit for the purpose of lighting, to be able to see. It was lit in honor of my father as the Shema. There's nothing to do with to be able to. It was not used as a fleshlight. Light that's used as a fleshlight, that's the light you say a bracha on. You're thanking Hashem for this light that He gave us the ability to see. But light that's coming for some other purpose, you will not say a bracha.
But take a light from that as long as it's going to do okay.
But if I would very good, excellent. But if I take a light from that light, then it would be good. I take a light from the yahrzeit candle, so light for the purpose of seeing. Now I'm creating. Then I could say the bracha on that light. And even if I took a light from a Gentile. Saturday night, I could do that because I created a new light, and
I would say the opposite. That if you can take from a Gentile, that's right.
Certainly you can take from the yahrzeit candle.
That was used for another purpose.
Exactly. So Ariel, we've been clear what's going on. Clear, Kiva, right? This is the Tosfos has a.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that it wouldn't be a conflict?
No, you're getting it right.
So there's a difference between the light of the Gentile, saying the blessing on the actual light that the Gentile lit, or the light from the light of the Gentile. If I light a new light from the Gentile's light, so I created something new. I'm not just using the Gentile's light. The Gentile's light, we said the issue is maybe he lit it on Shabbat. That was the concern with the Gentile's light. And if the Gentile lit a light on Shabbat, it's not appropriate for me to say a blessing on that light. But if I add to that light, I take my own candle and I go to the Gentiles' candle and I light my candle. So I created new light.
Your new light.
I could say, even though the source was from the Gentile,
Your new light is, even if the source is from the Gentile.
It's good enough.
warrants a-
blessing. Exactly. That's what the
He has a question.
yes.
You, no, so we were talking about, how if the boy lights a fire and then
That's fine.
but Keto said on Shabbat, or even like if the boy lit it on Shabbat, they take a fire from that too.
Again, only if you took the fire, obviously, after Shabbat.
You took it, but if the boy lit it on Shabbat, and I take another one.
As long as I, after Shabbat, which I have a right to light from something that was, even though it was burning on Shabbat from the Gentile, I could, as long as I created a new light. I didn't just, after Shabbat, I'm not just saying using his light.
So any
Flame that,
Shabbat are good for-
Right. right, but again, this is specific by regular Motzei Shabbat, by after Shabbat, but by Yom Kippur, has different rules. I can't just after Yom Kippur, I have to use from a light that was lit before Yom Kippur. Hear that? Listen to that. We spoke. There's not a light that was that, not a light that I created after Shabbat. I have to have a pre-existing light that I light. That's why it's brought down. One reason halacha that every married light before Yom Kippur. Listen, the Ashkenazi world, let's see if the Sephardi world have such a halacha. They should what? Never heard such a thing. Even the Ashkenazi world, they didn't hear about it. So it's a lot of people don't even know that they before Yom Light, we're going to be selling them before Yom Kippur. Be mistake, we're going to business together. We're selling these special lights that are going to be lit before Yom Kippur. That after Yom Kippur, it will be very user friendly. You have a clear, good light to say Bori Mora Eishan, because there needs to be a light that rested on Yom Kippur that wasn't used, and you're showing that on Yom Kippur we don't use fire. Yom Kippur we don't cook on Yom Kippur, in contrast to the other holidays that we cook on the holidays. Therefore, you should use a fire that was kindled before Yom Kippur, but not used on Yom Kippur, because you cook on Yom Kippur, and that's the one you're supposed to say a bracha after Yom Kippur. Everyone's gonna give everyone homework. You all look up on Google halacha what special laws, or look up in any Sephardi halacha. What are the laws of the candle that I need to use for after Yom Kippur? It's much different than a regular. It's a match. Light the match. Light a candle from the match. You can't do that after Yom Kippur. It doesn't work. You can't just light a candle after Yom Kippur. You have to have a fire that was previously burning before Yom Kippur. You're gonna educate the whole community about it. Ariel, you'll be the what? Coming again at a station near you. You say, what's the big deal? Why we need to do that? Because we want people to understand and recognize this idea, this difference.
Before you turn the stove on and make
Right. You say Hamavdil ben Kol Shachol, or you said at Tachanatanu in the Arvit, and then you could do it's true.
After Yom Kippur, you have guidelines.
Special guidelines.
Special guidelines. What type of light you're going
It's
to?
not about the malacha. It's just about the process of Havdalah after Yom Kippur.
Right. It's a right. Exactly. It's not right. It's post Yom Kippur. It's about the idea of this light is the rabbis institute different reason than on Saturday night. Saturday night candle represents Adam when it was created on the sixth day. Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, God gave him the knowledge, the thought process to think about taking two stones. It was Saturday night, rub them together and get some light, the benefit from the light, and therefore commemorating that light that created Motzei Shabbat, and every day that we have light, that we have fire, we're commemorating the idea of fire, of light for the purpose of seeing purposes.
For the purpose.
But purpose is totally totally different. Saturday night, we're commemorating the creation of fire for light. And after Yom Kippur, we're commemorating we're coming to recognize the idea that now we have a right to use fire for all purposes, but I could not use the fire for all purposes on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, I could not cook. In contrast to Rosh Hashanah, and Rosh Hashanah in contrast to Sukkot. You ever ask yourself the question, we just had Sukkot. Sukkot was over on Wednesday. We did not have a fire, not have a candles after Sukkot. Wednesday night after Sukkot, what Havdalah was the Borkei Gefen and no psamim and no light. And yet, after Yom Kippur, we had a light. We had to have Borim Mora Eish after Yom Kippur. Nathan, you with me? Yeah. Because Yom Kippur is unique, and therefore the fire that we bring after Yom Kippur is specific. It's unique for the Yom Kippur fire. It's coming for a total different purpose, and therefore that's why it's only for Yom Kippur, not for Sukkot. That doesn't apply to Sukkot. Sukkot, we can make fire. We could make a fire from a pre-existing fire. We could cook on Yom Kippur. We can't do that on Yom Kippur. So with like Mr. Haber said, it's coming for after Yom Kippur. They announced, but the people, I don't know if people get it. People don't understand what from a pre-existing light, right? They say there's those fancy words, pre-existing light. That's the top words, but I don't know if people understand what's going on.
People, men, I don't want to like candle.
Right. So very good. So this idea, because the way we wanted to make sure the household should have a light that was lit before Yom Kippur. So therefore, the man of the household, it should light this candle. I mean, if you're married, so it says before Yom Kippur, there's an extra candle that the married man would light. So at least if it's an Ashkenaz community, I presume it makes the same sense in the Sephardic community. That's that extra light. You light an extra light before Yom Kippur, and that will go ahead and be available for you to use right after Yom Kippur. So a single person, now I would say if a single person is living alone, I would say he should also light that extra light. He needs to save it. He needs to have it after Shabbat. But if a single person is living the traditional old way, where a single person lived in his parents' home, there used to be such a phenomenon, right? So a single person lives in their parents' home, therefore they don't need to light an extra candle for himself, because if his father lit that candle, and that candle will be available for the household to use after Yom Kippur. But I would say, rest your point of view is, person is living on his own, he should light that extra candle before Yom Kippur. Okay, hopefully we got that clear, everybody, and you remember that. Okay, so the Gemara continues. We just said that the explanation of Tosfos, of Rashi. Tosfos brings an opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. We are now on. We are in middle of the page. So Lokash, the first word says alav. The first word of line is alav. You have it? Lokash, hadika adam chashav lek adam chashav. So we'll just focus on Rashi's pshat. Okay. Both brightos are talking when they're in the shul, in the synagogue. There's an important figure, a very important person that came to the synagogue. Yet it's after Shabbat, and we have lights in the synagogue. And in both situations, there's an honorable person that came to the synagogue. Chacham Avadia came. V'lo kasha. Hadika chazana, hadalaka chazana. We're talking about a shul that has a shamash that eats in the synagogue. Some shuls you had the guy, the caretaker of the synagogue, the gabbai of the synagogue. Let's say Haron is the gabbai of shul here. But it was very common in the old days that sometimes the gabbai of the synagogue pretty much had like a private room, a separate room adjacent to the synagogue where he would live. That would be his apartment. Like I know someone that's for Shabbat, he's the rabbi of a shul, that they put him up in a room in the synagogue next to the synagogue itself. So then since he would eat in the synagogue, not exactly in the synagogue, in the room next to the synagogue, so the light, so therefore the light was also made for him. So if you have if a Chacham Avad shul Saturday night, and the shul has a shamash, a gabbai that eats at the adjacent room, so the light is not only lit for Chacham Avadia, it's also lit to give him light to be able to see when he eats, the gabbai, the shamash. That's when you would be able to say a bracha on that light, because it's, even though it's in honor of the honorable person, but it's also lit for the purpose of vision, that I should be able to see. However, if the gabbai does not eat in the adjacent room to the synagogue, and the Chacham Avadia comes to the synagogue, so the light is only in honor of Chacham Avadia, therefore I do not say a bracha on that light. So that's what the Gemara says. It depends on the case. Different case, different law. When the gabbai is eating in the adjacent room, I can say a bracha on that light. And let's say the light of the synagogue is strong enough to illuminate some of the adjacent room. I can say a bracha on that light since it's used for the gabbai's visual aid. How does that sound, everybody?
So you have a situation where it's Shabbat is just over,
Right.
and you're going to open the light, and that light is also, maybe it has other functions, but it's going to serve to be the light that the
gabbai could use to eat next door.
And therefore that light that
I have a right to
use, you have a right
to say the
use
bracha for Borei Moresh, because
that
that light is serving the purpose of vision. It's not just for the purpose of Chacham Avadia in honor of the great rabbi that came to town.
So, but it could be used for both.
Exactly. According to Rashi, exactly. It multi-purpose light, since one of the purposes for illumination.
It's light for the gabbai, and
The
the
guy,
other one is light for the in honor of the rabbi. They're both usable for whatever.
but the only one you use for Moresh is the one that's multi-purpose, that's used also for the gabbai. But if it's only for the Adam Chashuv, it's only for Chacham Avadia, I cannot say a bracha on that, because the reason why I lit the light because the chief rabbi came to town. I lit a light, not because, and he doesn't need the light. It's not because I lit the light because of that he should be able to see where he's walking. I lit the light out of honor for the previous guest that has come to the.
Rabbi, is there halacha on how long the flame has to be, like lit for, or you put it out right away?
You can put it right away. As long as you bend, the only halacha the main halacha is you have to be able to be a size of a flame that you could benefit from. You have to be close enough that you should be able to benefit from that flame.
You don't have to set the lights for it. Like
You don't have to. There are some people that do it. It's we growing up, and Mr. Habe, I think will tell you the same thing. We never saw such a thing of closing lights. Am I correct? We never saw it. It's more recent, and maybe there's reasons why. Because I think people, what? Right.
That people embrace because of a affection for it.
Right.
They want to do something distinctive that is only used in a certain point, and they open and close the light at that time. But we don't get it.
Right. But I'm saying it could serve a good purpose of the light being closed, because when you close lights, people realize they got to be able to come closer to see the fire. When the lights are on, people might not be so. You go into a synagogue and they make Havdalah, and there's a lot of people in the synagogue, and the guy standing on the other side of the synagogue, he doesn't realize to come close. But if the lights are off and the fire is on and you don't see anything, the back, you realize you got to come close. So I don't know if that's what's behind their rationale. Okay. Let's say everyone make sure you get don't get too close to the fire, but you get should be able to be close enough to have some benefit. You could be able to,
So you have some
what I'm
benefit
saying?
from that additional light.
right, you have some benefit from that light. If the lights would be close, the next minion is 7:30 here. The first minion is 6:30 downstairs. Welcome. Correct. I have to be able to have the ability to benefit from that. That I'm close enough that if the lights would be off, I would be benefiting. See, I presume the reason why they close the lights most probably is driven by the point, Mr. Haber, that since in order to say the bracha, you have to benefit from the lights. So it could be there are some people that are saying, hey, I'm not benefiting from this light because I have the lights on anyway. So where am I benefiting from the light? Maybe I presume that's driving the people to go ahead and say, let's close the lights, and then you'll see I'm benefiting from the light.
The fire that you're taking from is used for warmth and not necessarily for light.
So if it's only used for warmth, so right, you will not be able to say a bracha on such a fire. You know, you're making a bonfire to be able to warm yourself
It
up.
serves both purposes, but you only care about it.
Exactly. Even if it serves both purposes, but if the only purpose why you're doing it is for not for lighting purposes, just like it's for warmth only, you will not say a bracha. Just like the Adam Chashuv. Even though it has the ability to serve as both purposes as fire, but I am only lighting it for an honor of the rabbi, nothing to do with light, nothing to do with helping my vision and seeing, and I will not say a bracha on such a light. Okay? Like we said, a guy turns on the stove, the stove is on, you were cooking. Right after Shabbat, you know, your wife went ahead and she said, she's waiting for you to come home for Havdalah. She has the fire on the pot. She's making something good, some macaroni and cheese or whatever. And now, if she takes the pot, if she takes the pot off the fire, now can I go ahead and say Borei Moreish on that fire that's on top of the stove? I don't know if you see fires on top of stoves anymore, but now with all the electric stoves, you don't see fires anymore. But if you would see a fire, but that fire was not lit or lit for some other purpose. It was not lit to be able to see. I can't say a bracha on that fire.
But you, like, if I have a gas stove that flame comes out.
If you have a gas stove that flames come down, there's a good.
I don't know what my candles, I don't know what matches.
Right, it's a good question.
On?
I wonder if that, you know, I'm not asking. I would ask him the yeshiva and the big garage. Logic should say yes. If I light up, I did a flame, I got a nice fire. Hadlik Bori Moriyesh, I see the fires. It would seem to be good to me. I would like if I would just go over to the and just turn on the fire, and I'm turning it on for what purpose? I want to see. I want to for the purpose of Abdullah. I'm creating the fire. I created a new fire.
Yeah, I feel like people like I don't have a candle or a thing.
That should be a very easy way to do it, right?
Lighting a fire.
Lighting fire for that, and I'm doing it for that purpose. So, but I'm going to get back to you on that. I'm going to speak up. So, Rabbi Feinstein's son-in-law, the yeshiva. I'll ask him that question. Sounds like a very practical case. You went somewhere. You were staying in someone's house for Shabbat, and they didn't. You don't see it. You can't find. They gave you the house. You can't see that. You don't see the Havdalah can. You can't. You know, a place you can't get Havdalah can. There's no candle. Whatever it is.
I double checked with the other day when he said I think we're more strict with turning on the stove, and yeah, spot on.
Okay.
Spot on.
They just right. They don't hold turning on the fires enough. They actually say you have to put the pot on it. You have to put the pot on the fire.
Yeah. It's wrong.
Right. So I would say first we got to get the Sfardim to at least do the level of the Ashkenazim, and then we'll get that. Then we'll get them to do their own level. Meaning they have to first make sure that they make the fire that's being cooked, that the food that's being cooked in the house, they made the fire.
There's a lot of things that are more strict than Sephardic, where the leniencies are much greater than Sephardic. So it's funny.
Right. There are certain things that the Sfardim and Yichud being alone is also one of the things that the Sfardim are also much strict in certain. The Ashkenazim in certain cases, if you're with a certain amount of men, let's say if you have two men to get in one woman alone during the daytime, we have certain leniencies, but Sfardim are more strict. There's certain strictness by Yichud, by being 2 men, 3 men, being with one woman, the Sfardim won't buy it. I had a case, what?
It's Friday, my wired different, you know? Yeah.
No, it's different. There's different. The answer is there's different rabbi. It's all about how do you understand the Gemara. If how to understand the Gemara, and based on that, at least let's say with the Yichud story, Sfardim understand the Gemara a certain way, and the people have to be of a certain character that you could trust, and therefore, if you have 3 men and 1 woman staying overnight somewhere, Sfardim will not allow it. I had a situation. We went. We had my aunt stayed over my aunt's house. People don't realize, if you can't be alone with your aunt, even though it's your, it's your aunt. You can't go say, I'm going to sleep at my aunt's house. It's me and my aunt. No, nobody says you could just sleep at my aunt. I don't know if people realize that, but I can't just stay at my aunt's house, stay alone with my aunt. And then we had a story. So we had 3 men stayed over in my aunt's house. There was no problem. She was a widow. She's a widow. No problem. I don't think the Sfardim would buy it. I don't think the Sfardim would never. Again, an aunt or I don't think they're going to make it different. I don't think they're going to make a difference between an aunt and another. You could check that up too. But they for sure, in halacha by the Ashkenazim, 3 men and 1 woman. If there's 3 proper men and 1 woman, they could stay in the same house overnight. Technically, I'm not saying it's a good idea, but Ashkenaz Sfardim will not buy it.
So how many women do they have to equalize before?
Okay, so good, very good. So obviously, 1 woman will not be. We have to see the halacha discussed.
3 men and 1 woman is okay.
Right, for being in a place that no one else is expected, no one else. No, that's no problem.
Oh.
Husband protects.
But in your case, like husband is dead or like.
Right, the husband is there. There's no husband. No one's coming into the house. So, okay. By daytime, we hold 2 men and 1 woman. Could be good. If they're 2 proper men and 1 woman, they could be alone. I mean, let's say that no one else is coming.
What about in like work in like a conference room, something like?
Work, as long as people could come, if there's many people that could come in and out, there's no, it's a public area that people can come in and out any time. That's not called being alone. Being alone means when no one else is expected to come, and that's called, it's like after work, there's just the secretary and the boss, and no one else is coming. The doors are locked. No one can come in. No one has keys. No one has access. Just these type of situations. So you're in a place.
Also, it's very rabbi that the way you do that is if you're in a place with a woman that you cannot that you can marry. No, listen, that is not allowed. I would go like a cousin, and that's okay.
I don't recall that the halacha makes a difference between the cousin. You could be alone with your mother, your grandmother, but you can't just.
So you can marry your cousin.
You technically could marry your cousin.
Yeah, you can marry your cousin. My grandparents were first cousins.
That's a long time ago.
Even today, you could marry.
Second cousins is very common.
You can marry, yeah.
But that's a long time ago.
It may not be as socially acceptable, but it's allowed.
Yeah, it's less. It's not like your mother. Again, mother, you could be alone. Your grandmother, no problem. Okay, I just wanted to share with it. And that's another case. You'll look into that issue to see how yichud, the Sfardim are also much stricter. Yeah, there's the Shulchan Aruch on it. Yes, you'll see. Okay, let's continue in the Gemara. The Gemara says, "V'iba yistema." Another approach is hava hadika chazana. Both cases is that there is a chazan. Both cases there is a shamash. In both cases, Haron or the person that eats in the synagogue is in both places. Belokasha. Ha b'diika sahara hadalekasara. When the moon, if the moon is giving of the beautiful night, it's a Saturday night, beautiful moon. Got a nice moon that's giving off the light, and then you lit the candle in the synagogue Saturday night. You did not, even though there's a gabbai that eats in the adjacent room, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need that light because he has the moon. So why did you light it? It's because there was a Chacham Avadia came to town. There, it's clear that you lit it specifically for the honorable person. Because you can't tell me you lit the light because you want the gabbai to be able to eat in the next room, to be able to see, because he doesn't need your light. He has the light of the moon. People used to do a lot with the light of the moon. People used to travel they would go with the light of the moon. So therefore that he doesn't need any light. The moon is called the luminary. It's a luminary. It's one of the ma'orot. It's a light. That's what the Torah refers to the moon as the ma'or. It's called the ma'or hakatan. It's a small light, and the sun is called the ma'or hagadal, the great light. So if you have the light of the moon, so therefore that the Gemara says that therefore the light of the candle is not serving. It's not made for the gabai. It's only made for the what? For the chacham, and therefore you cannot say a bracha on that light. However, if the moon is not shining tonight, it's a cloudy day, you don't see the moon, and the shamash eats in the next room, and the chacham avadia comes to the synagogue, then you're lighting the light for both the chacham and the gabai. The chacham in honor of the chacham, and the gabai in order that he should see. And therefore you go the shamash, the gabai, and therefore you can make a bracha on that when the moon is not out. Yes.
Let's say Shabbat ended and somebody was going to walk home from school and it's dark out. So they decided to light a flame. After Shabbat, Jew lit the flame. And he's now going home because he just wanted to see. It's very dark. And somebody goes, "Oh, can we say Havdalah?"
100%.
But it's because it's used for
It's
light.
for light, exactly.
Oh,
100%. You make a bracha on it, no problem. Now, Tana Rabbanan, Hayoshim Beit Midrash. They were sitting in the Beit Midrash. First word of the line is Tana Rabbanan, tough reish. Ve'eviu or lifneihem, an amazing Gemara. They brought a fire in front of the people. Why? They wanted them to say Borei Moreish. Sounds like the Bnei Yeshiva, the guys in the yeshiva. They're learning after Shabbat, and they're in the Beit Midrash, and they brought the fire in the Beit Midrash that the guys for Havdalah they could say Borei Moreish. Or let's say there was no fire earlier. They said Havdalah without the candle because they had no candle. They couldn't get the candle. And then finally they got a candle. They brought a candle into the Beit Midrash. Beit Shammai omrim, kol echad ve'echad v'rachas. Beit Shammai says every person says his own bracha. Every person in the Beit Midrash says his own borei moreish. We don't say one. He says you don't say one borei moreish for everybody. Beit Hillel says, let's say one borei moreish and cover everybody. The Gemara says, what's the issue? Why shouldn't you do like we do? We follow Beit Hillel. Let one person say borei moreish for everybody. Because there's a rule, rov am hadrat melech, when you do a mitzvah in a group. By the way, you should know our group learning, the Chafetz Chaim says, is like rov am hadrat. It's very honorable. Because when you learn by yourself, it's not the same honor to God when you have many people come together, for an event, right? When you have an event, Mr. Haber ran an event, a Mishnayot, what was it, Mr. Haber? Gemara? Mishnayot event, and there was maybe hundreds of people came, right?
What was this?
The more people that came, it's more honorable. You have 10 people in a synagogue or 50 people in a synagogue, it's a different deal. So therefore, Beit Hillel says that one person say borei moreish, and everybody is doing it together. We're all fulfilling our mitzvah with you. Because we hear you say the bracha, it's as if we said the bracha. That's Beit Hillel's reason. Why does Beit Shammai say not? Doesn't Beit Shammai agree to that concept? Beit Shammai says, you know what the problem is? If we all have to wait in order to say the bracha for everybody has to stop learning. The whole Beit Midrash has to stop learning, make sure that everybody's ready to listen to that bracha. Those few seconds that it takes, those moments that it takes, that everyone's going to have to stop learning until everyone's ready. Like you ever see, I'm ready to make kiddush. Everyone ready? I'm ready to make Havdalah. Everyone ready? Everyone, can we stop the talking? I want to say, right? You know what I'm talking about, guys, right? We need everyone's attention. That time is bittul Torah. It's wasting time from learning. Better that each guy should say his own bracha then waste those moments. Is that fascinating? I think that's amazing. It's amazing Gemara. That's Beit Shammai's reason. Even though the halacha does not follow Beit Shammai, but the concept, the sensitivity that we need to have to Torah study, he's going to tell it to his brother. His brother's a Rosh Hashiva. The concept that we see that the Gemara with the sensitivity that Rabbi Haber, his brother's Rabbi Haber, from Shari Torah. That's Mr. Haven's brother.
Brother? Oh,
So
You know that.
we're related.
Sure, yeah.
Always, yeah, yeah.
so
Related.
that's the sensitivity. We don't want those moments of delay. And that's Beishamai. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, what? How precious the time, and how precious take the time away from study of Torah just to get everybody ready. That's what the Gemara says. Okay, with that, we'll get everybody, we'll read it inside tomorrow. I want everyone to get ready for the beautiful Rosh Chodesh davening
Amen.
with Kavanah, Yalla B'Yavo. Everyone have a great day. We'll see
Have a
everyone
great day.
tomorrow, hopefully.
Right, who? Syrian, yeah. Iraqi, some people probably have muscle.
That's true. We do. All right.
You're safe. Have a great day. I'll put them on there. I'll take care of it.